So Anthem just closed their open beta, or open demo, or whatever you want to call it. And I don't know about you, but I have some concerns. I'm concerned, mainly, that Anthem will end up losing 70% of its player base in the next 2 months. And in this video, I'm going to be discussing my thought process behind that statement. A lot of this is stemming from the potential reality that the game will release in a similar state compared to the demos. If that's true, then undoubtedly one of the biggest issues is the performance. For me, I have an i7 7700K, 16 gigs of RAM, and an RTX 2070. I can run the game on maxed out and high, and I get about the same frame rate each. It's only when I go down to medium or low that maybe I get another 10 or 15 frames per second. But even then, I'm not even hitting 90 frames a second on 1080p. And somebody with maybe an older generation i5 or just a 1060 GTX is going to be struggling to get even those lower settings at 60 FPS on 1080p unless there's some substantial overhaul to the optimization. And as you can tell from the footage, I can barely record this game at 60 FPS using OBS, and the settings are optimized so that they're not taking up a lot of extra power. It's not looking great. And then you have these server issues and the various bugs and inconsistencies. Now, I'm a little bit less skeptical on these. I think these will be fixed in the most part, at least within the first couple of days of launch. The next month or two after that, those issues aren't going to affect the player retention. Next up, we have the RPG elements, or in my opinion, the lack of them. Now, what does every other ARPG, Diablo 3, Path of Exile, Grim Dawn, what do all those do in common that really get the formula right? RPG elements beyond loot, aka skill trees, in some form or fashion. The skill trees can be actives, the skill trees can be passives, or a mix of both. Those three games that I mentioned, some have all passives, some have mostly actives. It really just depends. But Anthem doesn't have any. It's much more closer to Destiny, but even then, Destiny has some sort of skill tree. It's pretty damn neutered and pretty damn basic, but it is there, and I would like to think that Anthem overall will probably have more RPG customization than Destiny will, but that's really only assuming that the masterwork items in Anthem and the legendary items in Anthem will be that much more powerful and that much more extreme in terms of the way that they change your build. Kind of like the exotics from Destiny, but on steroids, or really any of the uniques from Path of Exile. Now granted, having more RPG elements than Destiny is really freaking easy, but I don't see Anthem having anywhere near the RPG elements of, say, Grim Dawn, or Path of Exile, or even Diablo 3. It might be closer to Warframe, but Warframe's kind of a different beast in that aspect. The systems don't really line up all of that well with how they use the cards and everything on the items, and how it all ties into their microtransactions. That's another conversation for another day. Another good couple of comparisons for decent RPG mechanics in a game like Anthem would be the Borderlands series. Both of those games had remarkably well-constructed RPG skill trees. A lot were passive, some were active, but it worked really well, and it combined even better with a lot of the crazy stuff that the loot was able to give you. All of the different modifiers and even some of the more unique and exotic properties that the armor and guns had, which is a shame that Anthem didn't go that route. All you have is the loot. I imagine you won't be able to fill out your entire build with legendaries, maybe just one legendary or two legendaries total, maybe one piece of legendary armor and one legendary weapon, and then all masterwork skills. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. I wish they kind of would have showed us a little bit before all the pre-orders were done, but anyway, the point is, they aren't doing a lot in that regard. Now, the final game could be somehow completely different. There could be a lot more systems in place than what the demo showed us. I'm not buying it, though. I might be beating a dead horse at this point, but it just seems like a huge missed opportunity to really not go balls to the wall, amp up the sci-fi even further than they already have, which is pretty phenomenal, at least from a story perspective, and just go to town on the way you can customize your loot and your skills, and maybe even skill trees. in a dual class system, or more than just what they have now. Just right now it seems so basic, like they're playing it really safe. I mean, even a lot of the masterwork item stuff that I've seen, it's all just based off of increasing percentage damage or reducing the cooldowns of your super or other abilities. And I'm just thinking to myself, there has to be something more imaginative that they have up their sleeves. Otherwise, the loot grind isn't going to be compelling enough, because there's nothing else that is in the game aside from raw PvE challenge in the form of just blind increasing percentage health and damage on the enemies. I mean, Diablo 3 just called from 2012, and they want their entire endgame premise back. Anthem is a lot more fun to play than Diablo 3, though, so at least there's that. But then we have the final nail in the coffin from my perspective, the lack of PvP. And before you go to the downvote button and immediately write off whatever I'm about to say, know this: the PvE and story elements of Anthem have to be as compelling or more compelling than the likes of Borderlands for it to succeed in the long run. Because I'm getting Division 1 launch vibes from this, and the Division 1 at least had the Dark Zone and the subsequent DLC that came out to give more PvP options, and that kept it alive just long enough to get the funding that they needed to not only make the Division 1 actually good, but also to make the Division 2, which I may look at in the future, if it's good, probably. Here's the difference between the Anthem and the Division 1, though. The Division 1 didn't have nearly as much hype and anticipation and raw player numbers that Anthem is going to have on day 1 and week 1 and month 1. But what's ultimately going to keep it alive is its shaky PvE foundation. And sadly, that's all it has. Even the PvE map itself isn't all that big. There's not much more going for Anthem other than, 1, its looks, 2, its potential endgame content and loot, maybe, and that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, and the story too. I did actually enjoy parts of the story that I have, well, been able to witness in the VIP demos and the demo. Those were pretty cool. I think that will have some initial legs, but once everyone's completed it and moved on to the rest of the meat of the game, yeah, shaky. Now, if Anthem did have PvP in some way, or at least a Gambit Destiny-style mode, then yeah, a lot of these issues that I have with them playing it close to their chest, with their meager, uninteresting loot bonuses that we've seen so far, yeah, that would make more sense, because that would work in a PvP-style environment. Maybe not a competitive environment, but, you know, you could maybe have a system where you could flag up for PvP in the free roam mode and, you know, fight each other that way. I mean, that would be great if there was just a system like that, and then like a bounty system where you could get gold for hunting down a certain player who killed too many other players, and you team up on that player in an environment where everyone's flying around and there's a lot of verticality. That would be a lot of freaking fun, right? And it would be an opt-in, opt-out system. If you didn't want to deal with that stuff at all, you could just change it in the settings and be like, nah, I don't want anybody flagging up for PvP in my instance. And then yeah, that would work. Yeah, no complaints. And then that would give somebody like me and a lot of other people who would help keep the game alive when it eventually does start to decline. It would give it life, and it would keep it going and keep pumping money into the system for them to put out more content, more PvE content, more loot, and break the molds and bounds that they've set themselves in. And then we would have yet another service-style shooter that continually evolves, and a game that came from nothing to become something. But take all that with a grain of salt, because that is all assuming that the game will start with nothing, or at the very least with very little, in terms of content, in terms of things that it should be doing, given all of the other history behind these types of games. So we're just going to have to see. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, even if you did dislike this video. Even if you think PvP needs to be nowhere near Anthem in any capacity for any reason for anybody, just pure PvE. Yeah, let me know your thoughts. We'll have a discussion about it. I'm not going to flame anybody. I just want to talk about it, because I think it's interesting to think about, and as a prediction, I hope that I'm wrong, because that would be good. That would mean the game will succeed, and I wouldn't have to worry or be disappointed. So we'll see. If you did enjoy the video though, hit that like button, subscribe for more. I'm going to be doing a lot more VR reviews and VR gameplay on top of stuff like this. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Even the way it dies is unnerving.
Alright, well, how many years will it take you to forget that thing? I'm gonna go with 8.
One for each of the tyrant's legs.
No more scorpion talk, please.